The morning air on Colony Station Kepler 442b carried the scent of artificial atmosphere recyclers and the distant hum of fusion generators. 8-year-old Emma Chun walked hand in hand with her mother through the bustling market district, her eyes wide with wonder at the alien merchants displaying their exotic wares. The human settlement had been peaceful for 3 years now. Ever since the Galactic Enforcement Coalition established their presence on the colony world, Emma's small fingers clutched a handmade doll her grandmother had sent from Earth, its fabric worn soft from countless hugs. She skipped alongside her mother, Dr. Sarah Chun, who served as the colony's chief medical officer. The little girl's laughter echoed off the metal walls as she pointed excitedly at a Zephyrian vendor's display of crystalline trinkets that caught the artificial sunlight. "Mama, look! They're so pretty!" Emma tugged on her mother's lab coat, her dark eyes sparkling with innocent delight. Dr. Chun smiled down at her daughter, adjusting her medical bag. "They are beautiful, sweetheart. Maybe we can look at them after I finish my rounds at the clinic." The market buzzed with activity as various species conducted their daily business. Tall, elegant Altarians glided past with their flowing robes, while stocky Corvin traders argued loudly over shipping manifests. The atmosphere was generally peaceful, a testament to the Coalition's efforts to maintain order among the diverse populations that now called Kepler 442b home. Commander Vexstar of the Hegemony, Fourth Fleet adjusted his ceremonial armor as he strode through the market with 3 of his subordinates. The Hegemony had recently joined the Galactic Enforcement Coalition, though many questioned their methods and rigid hierarchy. Vexstar's species, the Caltharians, were known for their militaristic culture and their belief in absolute authority. Standing nearly 8 feet tall with chitinous gray skin and 4 arms, Vexstar cut an intimidating figure even among other alien species. His yellow eyes surveyed the crowd with barely concealed disgust. To him, this mixed community represented everything wrong with the Coalition's soft approach to governance. Different species mingling freely, conducting business without proper oversight. Children running about unsupervised, it all offended his sense of order. "Look at this chaos," he muttered to his lieutenant. "Sub-Commander Crix? No discipline, no respect for hierarchy. These humans have corrupted the natural order." Crix, a younger Caltharian eager to please his superior, nodded enthusiastically. "Indeed, Commander. Perhaps we should establish some proper protocols for market conduct." As they moved deeper into the market, Emma's ball, a simple rubber toy she'd been carrying in her free hand, slipped from her grasp. The red sphere bounced across the walkway, rolling directly into Vexstar's path. The little girl released her mother's hand and darted after it, her small legs carrying her swiftly through the crowd. "Emma, wait!" Dr. Ching called out, but her daughter was already weaving between the legs of various alien shoppers. Emma reached her ball just as Vexstar's heavy boot was about to step on it. Without thinking, the 8-year-old girl dove forward, scooping up her toy and inadvertently bumping into the Caltharian commander's leg armor with her shoulder. The contact was minimal, barely registering as more than a gentle tap, but Vexstar stopped abruptly. His 4 eyes focused on the small human child who now sat on the ground, clutching her ball and looking up at him with wide, startled eyes. "How dare you!" Vexstar's voice boomed across the market, causing nearby conversations to halt mid-sentence. "You dare to assault an officer of the Hegemony Fourth Fleet?" Emma scrambled to her feet, confusion evident on her young face. I'm sorry, mister. I was just getting my ball." Dr. Chun pushed through the gathering crowd, her face flushed with concern and rising anger. "Emma, are you all right?" She knelt beside her daughter, checking for injuries before turning her attention to the towering alien officer. "Commander, she's just a child. She meant no harm." Vexstar's mandibles clicked together in what his species considered a display of supreme authority. The sound sent chills through the assembled crowd, who had never seen such an aggressive stance from a Coalition officer. "Ignorance is no excuse for disrespect. This spawn has committed an act of aggression against a superior officer." "Superior officer?" Dr. Chen rose to her full height, which barely reached Vextar's chest. Her voice carried the steel that had seen her through medical school on Earth and countless emergency situations on the frontier. She's 8 years old. She was retrieving her toy. The crowd continued to grow as word spread through the market. Alien merchants peered out from their stalls, while human colonists began forming a protective semicircle around Dr. Chan and Emma. The tension in the air was palpable, crackling with the electricity of an imminent confrontation. Sub-Commander Crick stepped forward, his hand resting on the energy weapon at his hip. "Commander, perhaps we should—" Silence. Vextar's roar echoed off the market walls. His forearms spread wide in an intimidation display that would have terrified most species in the galaxy. "This is a matter of military discipline and interspecies protocol." Emma began to cry, the overwhelming size and anger of the alien officer finally breaking through her initial confusion. She pressed herself against her mother's leg, her small body trembling. The sight of the frightened child only seemed to inflame Vextar's anger further. "Look how it cowers," he sneered. "Typical human weakness. No wonder your species requires constant supervision." Dr. Chen's medical training had taught her to remain calm under pressure, but the combination of her daughter's tears and the officer's cruel words ignited something primal within her. "How dare you speak about my child that way? What kind of monster threatens an 8-year-old girl?" The word monster hung in the air like a challenge. In Caltharian culture, being called such a name by what they considered a lesser species was an insult that demanded immediate response. Vextar's eyes narrowed to yellow slits as his four hands clenched into fists. "You forget yourself, human," he hissed. "Perhaps you need to learn proper respect for your betters." Before anyone could react, Vextar's lower right arm swept across in a backhanded strike. His intention was to strike Dr. Chun, to put the uppity human in her place and demonstrate Caltharian superiority to the gathering crowd. But Dr. Chun, her maternal instincts overriding everything else, had already begun moving to shield Emma from the towering alien's aggressive posture. The blow caught the 8-year-old girl directly across her small face and chest, the force of it lifting her tiny body off the ground and sending her flying nearly 10 feet through the air. Emma hit the metal floor of the market with a sickening sound that would haunt the witnesses for the rest of their lives. Her small form lay motionless, blood trickling from her nose and mouth, her handmade doll landing beside her with its arm torn off. The market fell into absolute silence. Even the ambient hum of the station's life support system seemed to fade as hundreds of beings processed what they had just witnessed. Dr. Chen's scream shattered the quiet. A sound of pure anguish that spoke to the universal experience of a parent's worst nightmare. She dropped to her knees beside her daughter, her medical training warring with her maternal terror as she checked for vital signs. Emma's breathing was shallow and irregular, her small body showing signs of severe trauma. Blood continued to seep from her nose, and Dr. Chun could see the telltale signs of internal injuries. "Someone call emergency medical," she shouted, her voice cracking with emotion as she carefully stabilized Emma's neck. "Get the trauma team to the market now." The crowd erupted into chaos. Human colonists surged forward, their faces twisted with rage and disbelief. Alien merchants backed away from their stalls, some in horror, others in fear of being caught in what was rapidly escalating into an interspecies incident. The other coalition officers in the market stood frozen, uncertain how to respond to a situation that had spiraled far beyond normal protocols. Vextar stood over the fallen child, his yellow eyes showing no trace of remorse. If anything, he appeared satisfied with the demonstration of Caltharian strength. "Let this be a lesson to all humans," he announced, his voice carrying across the silent market. "Respect must be shown to your superiors or consequences will follow." Sub-Commander Crix shifted uncomfortably, finally beginning to understand the magnitude of what had just occurred. "Commander," he whispered urgently, "perhaps we should—" "Should what?" Vextar snapped. "Show weakness? Apologize for maintaining proper order?" This human spawn learned a valuable lesson about respecting authority. Dr. Chun looked up from her daughter's still form, her face streaked with tears and blood. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but carried clearly through the silent market. Her name is Emma Chun. She's 8 years old. She likes to draw pictures of flowers and she's afraid of thunderstorms. She's not a spawn or a lesson. She's my daughter. The simple dignity of those words hit the assembled crowd like a physical blow. Several humans openly wept, while even some of the alien merchants showed signs of distress in their own cultural ways. The Altarians' normally pale skin had taken on a blue tinge of mourning, while the Corvin traders' ear flaps had flattened. Against their skulls, in a display of respect for grief, emergency medical personnel arrived within minutes, but those minutes felt like the medical bay of Colony Kepler 442b had never seen such a gathering. Dr. Chun sat beside Emma's bed, holding her daughter's small hand while monitoring equipment beeped steadily in the background. The 8-year-old remained unconscious, her face swollen and bruised from Vextar's brutal strike. 3 broken ribs, internal bleeding, and a severe concussion, injuries that would have killed most alien children. But that human resilience had allowed Emma to survive. Word of the attack had spread like wildfire through the human communication networks. Dr. Chun's broadcast had reached not only the civilian colonies but also military installations throughout human space. The response was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Captain James Harrison of the UES Retribution was the first to respond. His destroyer had been conducting routine patrols near the vegan frontier when Dr. Chun's message reached them. Harrison, a veteran of the border wars, listened to the recording 3 times before making his decision. Navigation. Plot a course for Kepler 442b, maximum burn, he ordered, his voice carrying the weight of barely controlled fury. Communications, relay that message to Fleet Command with my personal recommendation for immediate intervention. His executive officer, Commander Lisa Rodriguez, approached with the ship's medical report on human children's injury patterns. Captain, according to our physician, the force required to inflict these injuries on an 8-year-old would be equivalent to being struck by a small vehicle. This wasn't discipline, it was attempted murder. Harrison's jaw tightened as he studied the medical data. He had 2 daughters of his own, safe on Earth, and the thought of them facing such violence made his blood boil. Commander, send a message to all human vessels within 6 jumps. Tell them what happened here. Let them know that humanity is responding. Similar scenes played out across human space. Admiral Sarah Mitchell, commanding the 3rd Battle Group near Proxima Station, diverted her entire fleet toward Kepler 442b, the merchant vessel. New Shanghai changed course from its trade route, its crew voting unanimously to support the response. Even civilian transport ships altered their schedules, carrying volunteers and supplies toward the colony world. But the most significant response came from an unexpected source. Deep in the Outer Rim, the heavy cruiser Nemesis received Dr. Chun's broadcast while conducting classified operations against pirate strongholds. The ship's captain, Colonel Marcus Kane, had spent the last 5 years leading humanity's most elite special operations unit, the Death's Head Battalion. These were not regular military personnel. They were the humans that other humans whispered about, the ones who had earned their reputation fighting in the galaxy's worst conflict zones. They were veterans of the Centauri Uprising, survivors of the siege of New Constantinople, and the soldiers who had ended the slave wars in the outer territories. They were what happened when humanity's capacity for violence was refined into a surgical instrument. Kane studied the tactical data his intelligence officer had compiled. So this Caltharian thinks diplomatic immunity makes him untouchable? Sergeant Major Elena Vasquez, Kane's second-in-command, nodded grimly. Coalition laws are clear, sir. As long as he remains on Kepler 442b under hegemony protection, he's beyond legal reach. Legal reach, Kane repeated softly, his scarred face showing the ghost of a smile. Good thing we're not lawyers. The Death's Head Battalion had a reputation that preceded them throughout the galaxy. They were the unit that had infiltrated a syndicate stronghold to rescue human prisoners, the ones who had hunted down war criminals across 3 star systems, and the soldiers who had made it clear that humanity's patience had limits. They operated in the gray areas where traditional military forces couldn't go. Sir, Lieutenant Thompson, the communications officer, looked up from his console. We're receiving similar reports from 47 other human military units. They're all converging on Kepler 442b. Kane nodded, unsurprised. This was how humans responded to threats against their children, not with individual anger, but with collective, coordinated action. How long until we reach the colony? 18 hours at maximum burn, sir. Make it 16. I want to be there before the politicians have time to complicate things. Back on Kepler 442b, Commander Vexstar was beginning to understand that he had made a serious miscalculation. The communication networks were flooded with human transmissions, and his own intelligence reports painted a disturbing picture. Human military vessels were converging on the system from every direction. Sub-Commander Crix approached nervously. Commander, Fleet Command is requesting an immediate report on the incident. They're concerned about the human response. Vexstar's mandibles clicked in irritation. Concerned? About what? A few human vessels posturing uselessly outside our protection grid? Sir, it's more than a few. Our sensors are detecting at least 60 ships approaching the system. Some of them are broadcasting identification codes we don't recognize. For the first time since striking Emma, Vexstar felt a flicker of genuine concern. The hegemony was powerful, but they were not stupid. Even they understood that humanity's military capabilities were formidable when properly motivated. Contact Hegemony High Command, he ordered. Request immediate reinforcement of our position. But the response from High Command was not what he expected. Admiral Vexstar, one of the hegemony's most senior commanders, appeared on the communication screen with an expression that could only be described as furious. You did what? Vexstar's voice carried clearly through the command center. You struck a human child? Vexstar straightened to attention. Sir, I was maintaining proper discipline. The spawn assaulted my person. The spawn was an 8-year-old child retrieving a toy. Vexstar's voice rose to a roar that made the communication equipment crackle. Do you have any idea what you've done? Do you understand the position you've placed the entire hegemony in? The confusion on Vexstar's face was evident. Sir, I don't understand. It was a minor disciplinary action against an inferior. Inferior? Vexstar's laugh was bitter and cold. Commander, let me educate you about humans since your intelligence briefings clearly failed to do so. Humans don't just protect their own species. They protect their children with a ferocity that makes our warrior culture look peaceful. And when someone harms a human child, they don't just send lawyers or diplomats. The Admiral paused, his alien features taking on a grim expression. They send soldiers. Elite soldiers. The kind that ended the Zephyrian War in 6 months instead of 6 years. The kind that made the syndicate cartels surrender rather than face extinction. Do you know what humans call their special operations units? Vexstar remained silent, a growing unease filling his chest. They call them ghost units, death squads, and devil hunters. Not because they're trying to sound impressive, but because those are the names their enemies gave them before they died. Vexstar leaned closer to the camera. And now, because of your arrogance, those same soldiers are heading straight for our position. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Vexstar staring at a blank screen. Around him, his subordinates exchanged nervous glances. For the first time since joining the hegemony military, their commander looked genuinely shaken. Meanwhile, in the colony's medical facility, Dr. Chun sat vigil beside Emma's bed. The little girl had regained consciousness briefly, long enough to ask for her torn doll and to tell her mother that her tummy hurt. The innocence in those few words had broken Dr. Chun's heart all over again. Marcus Webb entered the room quietly, his face grave. Sarah, we need to talk. Dr. Chun didn't look up from Emma's sleeping form. If it's about the legal situation, I don't want to hear it. I know Vexstar will face no consequences through official channels. It's not about that. Webb pulled up a chair beside her. It's about the response your broadcast triggered? Sarah, half the human military is heading this way. Now she did look up, her tired eyes focusing on the security chief's worried expression. Good, you don't understand. These aren't peacekeeping forces or diplomatic escorts. Intelligence reports are identifying ships from the Special Operations Command, Deep Space Reconnaissance, and units I've never even heard of. Webb leaned forward. Sarah, some of these soldiers are the kind that don't officially exist. Dr. Chin's expression didn't change. I don't care if they're ghosts, Marcus. Someone needs to answer for what happened to Emma. And they will, but the cost might be higher than you realize. Webb showed her his tablet, displaying the growing fleet of human vessels approaching the system. If this escalates into violence, people are going to die. Potentially a lot of people. For a long moment, Dr. Chun stared at the tactical display. Ships with names like Nemesis, Retribution, and Silent Death were converging on their peaceful colony world. Part of her understood Webb's concern. This could spiral into a conflict that would affect far more than just Vexstar and his subordinates, but then Emma stirred in her sleep. Whimpering softly as pain medication battled her injuries, Dr. Chun gently stroked her daughter's hair, and her resolve hardened. Marcus, I've spent my entire adult life saving lives. I've treated injuries, fought diseases, and done everything in my power to heal rather than harm. She looked up at him with eyes that held no compromise. But when someone hurts my child and shows no remorse, when the black shuttles landed like whispers in the night, their advanced stealth systems making them nearly invisible to standard sensors. From their bellies emerged figures that moved with the fluid precision of apex predators. The Death's Head Battalion had arrived on Kepler 442b, Colonel Marcus. Kane stepped onto the colony's landing pad, his boots making no sound on the metal surface. Behind him, 47 of humanity's most elite soldiers spread out in perfect formation, their movements coordinated by years of operating in hostile territory. They wore no standard uniforms, carried no identifying marks, and moved with the quiet confidence of professionals who had never failed a mission. Dr. Chun met them at the medical facility entrance, her face showing the exhaustion of a mother who had spent 36 hours at her critically injured daughter's bedside. Kane approached her with the respectful demeanor of a soldier who understood the weight of what had happened. Dr. Chun, he said quietly, his scarred face showing genuine empathy. I'm Colonel Kane. We're here about Emma. She studied the man before her, tall, lean, with the kind of scars that spoke of battles won rather than lost. His eyes held the cold intelligence of a predator, but when he spoke her daughter's name, there was unmistakable warmth. You came, she said simply. All of you came. Ma'am, when someone hurts one of ours, especially a child, we don't just come. Kane's voice carried quiet certainty. We end the threat, permanently. Dr. Cheen felt a mixture of gratitude and apprehension. Emma is still unconscious. The internal bleeding has stopped, but the trauma... She paused, her medical training warring with her maternal anguish. She may never fully recover from this. Kane's expression hardened into something that would have terrified most sentient beings. Then Commander Vexstar has a debt to pay that goes beyond simple justice. Sergeant Major Elena Vasquez approached, carrying intelligence reports compiled by their reconnaissance team. Colonel, we have full tactical analysis of the hegemony compound. Vexstar is holed up in the diplomatic section with 36 guards and enough firepower to level half the colony. Defenses? Energy shields, automated weapon systems, and early warning sensors covering a 2-kilometer radius. It's a fortress, sir. Vasquez smiled coldly. Of course, fortresses only work if your enemy fights conventionally. Kane nodded, his mind already working through the tactical possibilities. The Death's Head Battalion had earned its reputation by excelling in impossible situations, and this operation would require every skill they had developed over years of classified missions. What about coalition response? Kane asked. Interesting development there, sir. Vasquez consulted her datapad. Admiral Vexstar of the Hegemony High Command issued a priority transmission 2 hours ago. They're officially disavowing Vexstar's actions and withdrawing diplomatic protection. Dr. Chun looked up sharply. What does that mean? Kane's smile was predatory. It means the hegemony just threw Vexstar to the wolves. And we're the wolves. Inside the fortified hegemony compound, Commander Vexstar was discovering that his superior's support had evaporated faster than water in vacuum. Admiral Vexstar's message had been brutally clear. The hegemony would not risk a full-scale conflict with humanity over the actions of one arrogant officer. Commander Crix approached his commander with undisguised fear. Sir, long-range sensors detect human forces surrounding our perimeter. They're not approaching openly, but our defensive systems keep registering movement in impossible locations. Vexstar studied the tactical display, but it showed nothing beyond normal colony activity. Sensor ghosts. Their stealth technology must be more advanced than our intelligence suggested. Sir, perhaps we should consider alternative options? Such as? Vexstar's voice carried the last vestiges of his arrogant authority. Surrender, sir. We could claim temporary insanity, diplomatic misunderstanding. Never. Vexstar's roar echoed through the command center. I am a Caltharian warrior. I bow to no inferior species. But even as he spoke those words, Vexstar felt the cold touch of genuine fear. The humans had been entirely too quiet since their arrival. No demands, no ultimatums, no diplomatic protests. Just the ominous silence of predators moving into position outside the compound. The Death's Head Battalion was demonstrating why they were considered the most dangerous soldiers in human space. They moved through the colony's infrastructure like ghosts, using maintenance tunnels, ventilation systems, and utility conduits to bypass every sensor and security measure the hegemony had deployed. Specialist Sarah Kim, the battalion's demolitions expert, crouched beside the compound's main power junction. Her cybernetic implants interfaced directly with the alien technology, mapping power flows and identifying critical vulnerabilities. Colonel, I can take down their shields and weapons in 37 seconds. They'll never know what hit them. Through her tactical communicator, Kane's voice was barely a whisper. Negative on the power grid, Kim. We need them to see this coming. Fear is part of the message. Kane understood that this operation was about more than just eliminating Vexstar. Word of what happened here would spread throughout the galaxy, carried by the survivors who witnessed humanity's response to those who harmed their children. Fear, properly applied, was a diplomatic tool more effective than any treaty. Lieutenant Rodriguez, the battalion's sniper specialist, was already in position atop the colony's communication tower. Her modified plasma rifle could punch through Caltharian armor at distances that defied belief. And she had a clear line of sight to the compound's command center. Tango 1 is in my scope, Colonel, she reported quietly. I can end this in one shot. Negative, Rodriguez. The target needs to understand what's happening to him. Kane's voice carried the cold patience of a predator who knew his prey was already doomed. This isn't an assassination, it's a lesson. Throughout the colony, human soldiers took their positions with mechanical precision. They moved through alien crowds without being detected, infiltrated secure facilities without triggering alarms, and positioned themselves to deliver overwhelming force at the moment of Kane's choosing. But the most important element of the operation wasn't the soldiers or their weapons, it was the message they would send. The galaxy needed to understand that humanity's children were protected by forces that operated beyond law, beyond diplomacy, and beyond mercy. At exactly 0300 local time, Kane gave the signal. The attack began with the compound's perimeter sensors simply stopping one by one. The automated defense systems went offline, not from damage but from surgical precision that turned their own technology against them. The hegemony guards found themselves blind and deaf, their sophisticated equipment providing nothing but static. What's happening? Vexstar demanded as his command center's displays flickered and died. Report! Sub-Commander Crix frantically worked at his console, but every system he accessed failed moments after activation. Sir, we're experiencing total systems failure. Old defensive networks are down. Impossible. Our technology is superior to anything these humans. His words were cut off as the compound's lights died, plunging the facility into absolute darkness. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting eerie red shadows throughout the corridors. And in that crimson twilight, the Death's Head Battalion began their final approach. They didn't storm the compound. They infiltrated it like a virus, moving through spaces that should have been impossible to breach. Ventilation shafts, maintenance crawlways, and structural gaps became highways for soldiers who had mastered the art of three-dimensional warfare. The first hegemony guard never saw what killed him. One moment he was patrolling a secure corridor, the next he was unconscious on the floor with no memory of how he got there. His comrades found him hours later, alive but with all his weapons and communications equipment missing. One by one, the compound's defenders disappeared. Not killed, that would have been too quick, too merciful. Instead, they were systematically neutralized by soldiers who could move like shadows and strike like lightning. Each guard who vanished weakened the defense and added to the growing terror of those who remained. Vexstar found himself trapped in his command center with a dwindling number of guards, all of whom looked at their commander with increasing resentment. His arrogance had brought this nightmare down upon them, and they all knew that their chances of survival grew smaller with each passing hour. "Sir," one of the remaining guards spoke up, his voice trembling. "Perhaps we should contact the humans directly. Negotiate some kind of no." Vexstar's desperation was finally showing through his facade of authority. "We are Caltharian warriors. We do not bow to—" The lights went out completely. In the absolute darkness that followed, the only sounds were the rapid breathing of terrified guards and the soft whisper of movement that couldn't quite be identified. Then, cutting through the silence like a blade, came a voice that spoke perfect Caltharian. "Commander Vexstar," the voice said, its human accent making the alien words even more unsettling. "You struck a human child. Did you think there would be no consequences?" Emergency lighting flickered back on, revealing that half of Vexstar's remaining guards had simply vanished. The survivors pressed closer together, their weapons raised but useless against enemies they couldn't see. "Show yourselves, cowards!" Vexstar roared, though his voice